Hello, I'm Janice Karen, Director of Policy, Technology, and Innovation at the Massachusetts Health Data Consortium, or MHDC. I run our Data Governance Collaborative, also known as the DGC. We start each of our weekly meetings with a series of industry quick updates to learn about new and proposed regulations, laws, standards, industry initiatives, and other activity. Join us for this week's updates. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. Excuse me. CMS has put out a new RFI on data collection and transparency for Medicare Advantage. The comments are due on May 29th. I did not check. It was supposed to publish officially yesterday, and I forgot to check that it was there. It came out in a preview form late last week. It's a fairly open RFI, and it basically asks about data that currently is and is not being collected, and what you'd like to see. Especially, it's open-ended, it can be in anything, but then they point out areas they particularly care about. They include provider directories and networks, prior authorization, and they specifically call out denials, patient experience with appeals, and algorithms being used by prior auth under prior auth. But again, it's open-ended, so if there are other things about prior auth, we can comment on them. Cost and utilization of supplemental benefits. So that's things like food bank services or transportation services, things like that. Medicare Advantage marketing and consumer decision making, care quality and outcomes. So that would include quality measures, marketplace competition, and then various special populations such as dual eligibles and patients with complex conditions. And honestly, I just basically read through almost the entirety of the RFI in that description. It's very short, but if you'd like to go look, you can take a look at that URL, and it's either there as a preview form, or hopefully by now it's there for real. And they gave us an extra time for the comment, so it's not due until May 29th. So any questions or thoughts there?
Just the only comment I'll make, Janice, is this is because Medicare is not part of the prior authorization and interoperability bill or rule, and that's because Medicare is not they can't impose those rules on themselves because it'd be like self-governing. So that's why they're seeking this feedback, it seems like, because a lot of this stuff is similar to other things that we've.
They do actually. They've been pretty good about putting the rule, having the rules, not rules in the sense of regulation, but internal rules on themselves before they put them out as regulation for interoperability things. I can't swear that it's one-to-one correlation on everything, but they had a lot of equivalence on the interoperability side before they put out the rules that they were making other people do.
Gotcha.
So, and some of those do apply to Medicare Advantage. So this is not fee for service. This is specifically to Medicare Advantage. And so they do typically impose rules on payers that are doing Medicare Advantage plans. I don't remember off the top of my head whether the specific prior auth, exactly who the prior auth applies to off the top of my head. But if you'd asked me, I would have said it did apply to Medicare Advantage, but I'll defer to you on that. We'll have to double check that though. We'll double check that and report back.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other questions or comments here? If not, let's go on to the next. Yes.
There's one thing is on the provider directory. Just want to let you know the DOI have released the provider directory, at least for Massachusetts. So interestingly enough, and it's only for commercial line of business, right? So that being said, so I think we as a carrier is really looking for the detail and about the provider directory on the CMS to see where's the gap, if that is any synergy of the provider directory requirement from the DOI perspective for commercial line of the business. And like we're waiting for the directory requirement on this RFI.
Interesting. All right. I know that we had looked at the Department of Insurance proposals for provider directories some time ago. I want to say more than a year ago. but we hadn't actually seen that they had finalized that. So we'll definitely also go look for that as well and try to take a look at how things compare and maybe make some suggestions that they be compatible with each other.
Yes. They released it, I think is about I think back in December. And
Okay.
then DOI has been meeting with the carrier and AHAB and the map on the clarification. So, and all the carrier and was responded with the final comment on the like the clarification DOI will provide it on Friday. It was due by the end of the day yesterday, so we actually submitted as well. So that, and my understanding is they're supposed to be finalized these requirements soon because the CAQH is also needed the final requirement by February 1st in order to hit the date projected, kind of the September, October to release to like in production. So that is kind of the urgency of that.
Are you talking about now the CAQH core is, unless there's something else that I don't know about, what they're working on is an endpoint directory. So are you talking about a provider directory or an endpoint directory?
I'm talking about the provider directory. CAQH actually have a module called Direct Assure, which is collecting the provider data for like for the health plan in working with the Massachusetts and HCAS and Blue Cross of Massachusetts as well. Yeah.
All right, I will have to look at that too, because I knew they were working on a endpoint directory services, but I was not aware also of the provider directory. It's impossible to keep up with everything that's going on. Do my absolute best for everyone, but I appreciate the tips. We'll take a look at that and definitely try to. Certainly, one of the things that we push a lot in all of our comments is consistency across different rules and different requirements. So we'll definitely take a look at that.
Exactly, and different products.
Yep, whenever possible.
Janice, this is Denny. Lily's referring to the CAQH provider directory that MCAS, which is an organization that oversees provider, certification and licensure support for all the health plans in Massachusetts, save for a few. And this is in contrast to the endpoint directory, which includes everyone. The provider directory that Lily is describing and that the Mass Collaborative has been working on is a much more in-depth directory for the purposes of confirming, the education practice requirements for physicians, including, their source document verification, a lot of details so that physicians can maintain their certification and licensure in the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah, gotcha.
But
okay,
also
so that's even a third level of different than the traditional provider directory. There's there's a lot of things that use similar names that can be difficult to you sometimes have to dig in to figure out which ones are being discussed. Thank you for that clarification, Denny. That was super helpful. Anyone have anything else here? All right, well then, speaking of CAQH, let's go on to the next slide. So late yesterday, CAQH released the 2023 CAQH index. I've not had a chance to look at it in detail, but some of the key takeaways are that eligibility transaction use went up by 4% year over year, which is a bigger increase than they usually see. I think they said it's usually closer to 1% up each year. Prior authorization adoption via X12 also went up by 3%, but it still remains very low. And my guess is that it's likely going to remain so as people are going to be implementing the FHIR solutions that are being mandated more so than the X12 solutions, which haven't really been adopted. One thing that was interesting in the prior authorization section was that providers said that using the X12 transactions, it still took them 11 minutes to complete the transaction, but it takes them 16 minutes via a portal. But that's still a lot of time for a single supposedly electronic transaction to be set up. So the other thing that probably won't surprise people is that pretty much all medical providers, I said 98%, are using X12 claim submissions at this point. They consider that full saturation. Excuse me. Another thing that was interesting was that the number of people using 275s actually went down. And I don't know if that's because folks are waiting to see what happens with the proposed CMS attachments rule, or if people are starting to use FHIR mechanisms or other mechanisms for those transactions that they had used 275s for, or if there were simply less things that warranted it. But that went down. Coordination of benefits use also went down by 1% in 2023. And there was no I have no explanation for that one. Claims status increase went up by 2% for medical providers. In most of these, they split out medical and dental providers and gave separate data. So I focused on the medical data for this purpose. And then remittance advice use increased by 5%. One thing that I went looking for was last year they had tried to collect data on FHIR API use, and they didn't get enough responses. So I went looking for that this year to see if they had data, and they just had one really brief mention. We asked supplemental questions in 4 topics. 2 of the topics were FHIR use and use of AI, but they didn't respond. They didn't report any results. They didn't even say we didn't have enough data to report out results. They just didn't address the results, the answers they got to those questions. So there is an upcoming webinar from CAQH to go over the results. And so hopefully they'll address that there. And if not, have a chance to ask questions about that. They also usually present at the WEDI conference that follows, so that would likely be in May. So we may have a chance to dig deeper into some of this data at that point. Any questions or thoughts about this kind of high level stuff that we pulled out last night? All right, then let's go to the next slide and pause, please. I hope you learned a lot from our quick updates. If you're interested in finding out more about the DGC and its other activities, email me at dgc@myhealthdata.org. That email address is also on your screen.